The morning sun filtered through the cracked window of the office, casting golden streaks across the stack of unpaid bills on Rebecca Stone's desk. She pressed her fingers against her temples, trying to ease the headache that had become her constant companion over the past 3 months. The elegant script on the letterhead mocked her, Stone Harbor Inn, EST 1952. Her grandfather had built this boutique hotel with his bare hands, transforming it into Charleston's hidden gem. Now, 70 years later, she was about to lose it. The numbers didn't lie. The renovations after hurricane season had drained their emergency fund. The new luxury resort that opened down the coast had stolen half their regulars. And the loan her father had taken before his heart attack last year was coming due in exactly 2 weeks. Rebecca had tried everything. She'd pitched to investors, applied for grants, even considered crowdfunding. Nothing had worked. Her mother, Patricia, knocked softly before entering with 2 cups of coffee. At 60, Patricia still moved with the grace that had made her the belle of Charleston in her youth, though worry lines now creased her forehead. "You barely slept again," Patricia observed, setting down the coffee. "I'll sleep when I figure out how to save this place," Rebecca replied, her voice rough with exhaustion. "Sweetheart, maybe it's time to consider that we can't save it. Your father wouldn't want you destroying yourself over this." Rebecca's jaw tightened. "Dad would want me to fight. He'd want you to be happy. You're 32 years old, and you've spent the last decade pouring everything into these walls. When was the last time you went on a date? Had fun?" Before Rebecca could respond, the hotel's ancient phone rang. She grabbed it, grateful for the interruption. "Stone Harbor Inn, Rebecca speaking." The voice on the other end was crisp and professional. "Ms. Stone, this is Jennifer Park from Hartford Development Group. Mr. Hartford would like to schedule a meeting with you this afternoon to discuss a potential acquisition of your property." Rebecca's coffee cup slipped from her fingers, shattering on the hardwood floor. The name hit her like a physical blow. Hartford. James Hartford. "Ms. Stone? Are you there?" "I'm here," Rebecca managed, her voice barely above a whisper. "What time?" 2 o'clock. "Mr. Hartford will come to you." After hanging up, Rebecca stared at the phone as if it might explain how her world had just tilted on its axis. James Hartford. The boy she'd loved with every fiber of her being 10 years ago. The man who had vanished from her life without explanation, leaving only a brief text message, "I'm sorry. I have to go. Please don't try to find me." She had been 22, fresh out of college, planning their future together. He had been 25, brilliant and ambitious, with dreams of building an empire. They'd met during her junior year when he'd come to guest lecture in her business class. The connection had been instant and overwhelming, like lightning striking. For 2 years, they'd been inseparable. He'd promised her forever on a moonlit beach, slipping a simple silver ring on her finger. Then, one morning, he was gone. The ring had been returned by courier a week later with no note. Now he was coming here. To her hotel. To buy her family's legacy. Patricia noticed her daughter's ashen face. "Rebecca, what's wrong?" "James is coming. James Hartford. He wants to buy the hotel." Patricia's hand flew to her mouth. She remembered the months Rebecca had spent broken after he'd left, how her vibrant daughter had become a shell of herself. "You don't have to see him. I can handle the meeting." Rebecca stood, her hands shaking but her voice steady. "No. I need to do this." She spent the next 4 hours in a daze, showering, changing into her best navy dress, the one that made her gray eyes look almost silver. She twisted her auburn hair into a professional bun, applied makeup to hide the dark circles, and studied herself in the mirror. She looked polished, put together. Nothing like the girl James had left behind. At exactly 2 o'clock, a sleek black car pulled into the circular drive. Rebecca watched from her office window as the driver opened the rear door. Her breath caught. James Hartford had always been handsome, but time had transformed him into something else entirely. He'd filled out, his shoulders broader beneath the charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly mortgage payment. His dark hair, once carelessly long, was now perfectly styled. But when he removed his sunglasses, she saw his eyes hadn't changed. They were still that impossible shade of blue that had haunted her dreams for a decade. She forced herself to walk downstairs, each step measured and deliberate. He stood in the lobby, examining the vintage photographs on the wall, his back to her. She took a moment to compose herself. "Mr. Hartford." He turned, and for a fraction of a second, his professional mask slipped. She saw surprise, pain, and something else she couldn't identify flash across his features. Then the mask returned. Rebecca. Her name on his lips felt like a punch to the chest. "Thank you for seeing me on such short notice. Let's keep this professional, shall we? My office is this way." She led him through the hotel, acutely aware of his presence behind her. In her office, she gestured to the chair across from her desk and remained standing, maintaining every advantage she could. "I'll be direct," James began, pulling out a folder. "Hartford Development has been acquiring historic properties along the coast. We restore them, preserve their character, but upgrade them to meet modern luxury standards. Your hotel is exactly the kind of property we're looking for. And what happens to the current owners in your acquisitions? They're compensated fairly. More than fairly, actually." He slid a paper across the desk. Rebecca glanced at the number and felt sick. It was more money than she'd ever imagined. Enough to pay off every debt, set her mother up comfortably for life, and still have plenty left over. "This is generous," she admitted. "It's what the property is worth. What you've built here, Rebecca. It's remarkable." The way he said her name, with that familiar warmth creeping in, made her stomach twist. "You left." The words escaped before she could stop them. "10 years ago, you promised me forever, and then you disappeared. Now you show up trying to buy my family's hotel?" James's jaw tightened. "This is business. Is it? Or is this some twisted way of getting closure?" She laughed bitterly. "You know what, it doesn't matter. Stone Harbor Inn isn't for sale. Rebecca, I've seen your financial records. You have 2 weeks before the bank forecloses. This offer saves you. How dare you investigate me? It's due diligence. It's what any serious buyer does." She walked to the window, wrapping her arms around herself. "Get out. Rebecca. I said get out." James stood slowly. "I'll leave the offer on the table. You have until Friday to decide." He walked to the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, I am sorry. About everything." After he left, Rebecca collapsed into her chair, her carefully maintained composure crumbling. She hadn't expected seeing him to hurt this much. Hadn't expected the flood of memories and feelings she thought she'd buried. Patricia appeared moments later. "He's gone." Rebecca nodded numbly. "Are you going to take the offer?" "I don't know. Mom, I honestly don't know." That night, Rebecca couldn't sleep. She stood on the hotel's back porch, overlooking the marsh where she and James used to walk at sunset. She remembered every conversation, every laugh, every kiss. And she remembered the morning she'd woken to find him gone, her world shattered. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Her heart raced as she opened it. "I saw your interview in Charleston magazine last month. You've done incredible things with the hotel. Your father would be proud. I'm in town through the weekend. We should talk. Not about business. About us. About what happened. You deserve that much. James." Rebecca stared at the message, her hands trembling. Below it was another text, this one making her blood run cold. "By the way, I should mention I'm engaged. My fiancée, Claire, is joining me for dinner tomorrow at the Ordinary. I'd like you to meet her. She's been asking about the local hotel scene." The phone slipped from Rebecca's fingers. Engaged. He was engaged. And the jealousy that tore through her chest was so fierce, so consuming, it terrified her. Because it meant that after 10 years, 3 failed relationships, and countless nights of telling herself she was over him, she wasn't. She was still desperately, hopelessly in love with James Hartford. Rebecca spent the entire next day in turmoil. The word, engaged, echoed in her mind like a death knell. She threw herself into work, checking in guests, reviewing budgets, anything to avoid thinking about James and the woman who had captured what Rebecca once believed was hers forever. But by 6 o'clock, she found herself standing in front of her closet, hating herself for caring what she wore. She selected a fitted burgundy dress that hugged her curves perfectly, paired with heels that made her legs look endless. If she had to meet the woman who had won James's heart, she would do it with her head held high. The Ordinary was Charleston's most exclusive seafood restaurant, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs, where reservations required weeks of advance notice unless your name carried weight. James's name apparently carried enough weight to secure the best table in the house. Rebecca arrived deliberately 15 minutes late. She spotted them immediately. James sat with his back to the door, but the woman across from him was impossible to miss. Claire Montgomery was breathtaking. Sleek platinum blonde hair fell in a perfect curtain to her shoulders. Her white silk blouse and tailored black pants screamed sophisticated wealth. Diamond studs glittered at her ears, probably worth more than Rebecca's car. She was laughing at something James said, her hand resting possessively on his arm. Rebecca's stomach clenched. This was a terrible idea. But James had seen her. He stood immediately, his expression unreadable. "Rebecca. I'm glad you came." Claire rose as well, extending a perfectly manicured hand. "You must be Rebecca Stone. James has told me so much about your beautiful hotel." "I'm Claire Montgomery." The handshake was firm, confident. Up close, Claire was even more stunning, with flawless porcelain skin and emerald green eyes that assessed Rebecca with cool intelligence. "It's nice to meet you," Rebecca managed, sliding into the seat James pulled out for her. The gesture felt too intimate, too familiar, and from the slight narrowing of Claire's eyes, she noticed too. "I hope you don't mind, but I took the liberty of ordering wine," Claire said, pouring Rebecca a glass. "James mentioned you know wines. Your family's hotel apparently has an impressive cellar." "We do our best," Rebecca replied, taking a sip. The wine was exceptional, probably $200 a bottle. Everything about Claire screamed perfection. The waiter arrived to take their orders. Throughout the meal, Claire dominated the conversation with stories of her work as a senior partner at a prestigious New York law firm, the charity galas she organized, the summers in the Hamptons. She was accomplished, brilliant, and made it subtly clear that she and James were a perfect match. "James and I met at a conference in Milan," Claire said, her hand finding his again. "It was actually quite romantic. We were both reaching for the same cappuccino, and our hands touched." Rebecca felt something hot and ugly twist in her chest. She forced a smile. "How lovely. When's the wedding?" The question came out more sharply than she intended. Claire's smile turned triumphant. "Next spring. We're thinking Napa Valley. James has been scouting properties there for a new resort development. Mixing business with pleasure, you know." James had been uncharacteristically quiet, his eyes fixed on Rebecca with an intensity that made her skin burn. "Rebecca, I wanted Claire to meet you because she's actually been helping me with the Charleston acquisitions," he said finally. "She handles all our contracts. I've reviewed the offer for Stone Harbor Inn," Claire added. "It's extremely generous. James is being sentimental about it, honestly." The property needs significant work. Sentimental? Rebecca's voice came out sharper than glass. James shifted uncomfortably. Claire, maybe we shouldn't discuss business over dinner. Why not? It's what we do best together. Claire leaned forward, her tone becoming almost condescending. Rebecca, I understand the hotel has been in your family for generations, but sometimes we have to be practical. James is offering you a way out. You should take it before the bank takes everything. The rage that flooded through Rebecca was white hot. You know nothing about my hotel or my family. I know the numbers. I've seen your debt-to-equity ratio. I'm trying to help you see reason. Claire, James warned, his voice tight. But Rebecca was already standing, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Thank you for dinner, but I suddenly have no appetite. She grabbed her purse, but James caught her wrist. The touch sent electricity through her entire body. Rebecca, wait. Please. She looked down at his hand on her wrist, then up at his face. His blue eyes were pleading, conflicted, and filled with something that looked suspiciously like longing. Let me go, James. We need to talk. Alone. Claire stood as well, her perfect composure finally cracking. James, what's going on? Nothing, Rebecca said, pulling her wrist free. Your fiancé is just trying to close a business deal. That's all I am to him. That's all I ever was. She walked out before the tears could fall, before she could see the look on James's face, before she could do something stupid like beg him to remember what they'd had. Outside, the Charleston night air was thick and humid. She made it halfway down the block before the sobs came, harsh and ugly. She ducked into an alley, pressing her back against the brick wall. Rebecca. She spun around. James stood at the alley entrance, his suit jacket discarded, his tie loosened, looking more disheveled than she'd seen him since his return. Go back to your perfect fiancée. She's not perfect. And that dinner was a disaster. I shouldn't have invited you. Then why did you? He stepped closer, and she could smell his cologne, the same one he'd worn 10 years ago. Because I needed to see if there was still something between us. And now I know. Know what? That I made the biggest mistake of my life when I left you. Rebecca's heart stopped. You're engaged, James. You're getting married. I know. His voice broke. God, Rebecca, I know. Then what are you doing here? What do you want from me? He reached up, his hand trembling as he brushed a tear from her cheek. I don't know. I just know that seeing you again has made me question everything. She should have pushed him away. Should have slapped him and told him to go to hell. Instead, she found herself leaning into his touch, her eyes closing. You broke me, she whispered. It took years to put myself back together. I know. And I'm sorry. God, Rebecca, I'm so sorry. The apology hung between them, 10 years too late and yet somehow exactly what she needed to hear. When she opened her eyes, he was so close she could feel his breath on her face. This is wrong, she said, even as her body swayed toward his. I know. You're engaged to someone else. I know. Then stop looking at me like that. I can't, he breathed. Rebecca, I can't. And then he was kissing her, or she was kissing him, and it didn't matter who started it because suddenly 10 years collapsed into nothing. His hands were in her hair, her back was against the wall, and she was drowning in him, in the taste and feel and overwhelming rightness of being in his arms again. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, reality crashed back in. We can't do this, Rebecca said, her voice shaking. I know. You need to go back to Claire. You need to forget this happened. Could you? Forget? She looked at him, this man she'd loved and lost and apparently never stopped loving, and told him the truth. No. But I'm going to try. She walked away, leaving him in the alley, and this time she didn't look back. But the jealousy that burned in her chest wasn't just about Claire anymore. It was about the life she and James could have had, should have had, and the cruel twist of fate that had brought him back into her world when he belonged to someone else. Rebecca didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed watching the ceiling fan spin, replaying the kiss over and over. Her lips still tingled. Her heart still raced. And her conscience screamed at her for kissing an engaged man, even if that man had once been hers. At dawn, she gave up on sleep and went down to the hotel kitchen. Cooking had always been her therapy, and this morning she needed it desperately. She was elbow-deep in biscuit dough when her phone rang. Claire Montgomery's name flashed on the screen. Rebecca's blood ran cold. She considered not answering, but cowardice had never been her style. "Hello? We need to talk." Claire's voice was ice. "The coffee shop on King Street. 20 minutes. The line went dead. Rebecca arrived at the coffee shop with her heart hammering. Claire sat at a corner table, 2 cups already waiting. She looked as polished as ever, but there were shadows under her eyes suggesting she hadn't slept either. "Sit," Claire commanded. Rebecca sat. "I'm going to be direct because that's how I operate," Claire began. "James came back to the hotel last night at 1 in the morning. He was drunk, which I've never seen, and he told me everything." Rebecca's stomach dropped. "Claire, I'm sorry. It shouldn't have happened. Save it. I don't want your apology. I want information." Claire leaned forward, her green eyes sharp as knives. "Are you in love with him?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Rebecca could lie, should lie, but something in Claire's expression demanded honesty. "Yes," she whispered. "I never stopped." Claire nodded slowly, as if Rebecca had confirmed something she already knew. "He loves you too. He won't admit it, keeps saying it's just old feelings resurfacing, but I've known James for 3 years and I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you." "Then why are you marrying him?" "Because I'm pragmatic. James and I make sense on paper. We're both ambitious, both driven. We want the same things from life. Love is messy and unpredictable. Partnership is stable." "That sounds incredibly sad." Claire's laugh was bitter. "Maybe it is. But it's also safe. I'm 38 years old, Rebecca. I've built my career, traveled the world, done everything I set out to do. James is the perfect partner to build the next chapter with. I'm not going to throw that away for something as fleeting as passion. So why are you here? Why tell me any of this?" "Because I want you to understand what you're up against. If you pursue this, if you try to get him back, I will fight you with everything I have. James is mine, legally, socially, professionally. We've built a life together. You're just a ghost from his past." The words were meant to wound, and they did. But Rebecca saw past the bravado to the fear underneath. Claire was terrified of losing James. "I'm not going to pursue him," Rebecca said quietly. "He's engaged to you. He made his choice." "Did he? Or did circumstances make it for him?" Claire stood, gathering her purse. "James left you 10 years ago for a reason. Before you decide I'm the villain here, maybe you should find out what that reason was." She walked out, leaving Rebecca staring into her untouched coffee, Claire's words echoing in her mind. Rebecca spent the rest of the day trying to work, but her thoughts kept circling back to James and the question she'd never gotten answered: why had he left? She'd assumed he'd simply stopped loving her, that his ambition had mattered more than their relationship. But what if there was more to the story? At 5 o'clock, she made a decision. She drove to the Bellman Charleston place, the luxury hotel where James was staying. The desk clerk tried to stop her, but she swept past to the elevator, her determination overriding her nerves. She knocked on the door of the penthouse suite. James opened it, clearly surprised. He was in jeans and an untucked white shirt, his feet bare, hair messy. He looked younger, more like the boy she'd known. "Rebecca. What are you doing here? Why did you leave me?" The question burst out of her. 10 years ago, why did you just disappear?" His face went pale. "That's not a conversation for the hallway. Come in." The suite was enormous, all floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. But Rebecca barely noticed. She stood in the middle of the living room, arms crossed, waiting. James poured himself a whiskey with shaking hands. "Do you want one?" "I want the truth." He downed the drink in one gulp, then turned to face her. "Your father came to see me the night before I left." Rebecca felt the ground shift beneath her feet. "What?" "He came to my apartment. Told me that you had your whole life ahead of you, that you were brilliant and talented and destined for great things. He said I was a distraction, that my ambitions would either drag you away from Charleston and your family or force you to choose between me and everything you loved." "He had no right," Rebecca breathed. "He did, though. Because he was right." James's voice cracked. "I had just gotten the acceptance to Wharton, Rebecca. Full scholarship, but it meant 2 years in Philadelphia, then probably New York or San Francisco. I was 25 and hungry to prove myself. You were 22 and just taking over management of the hotel. Your father was sick even then, though you didn't know it. So you just left? Without even talking to me about it? Your father asked me if I loved you. I said yes. He asked if I loved you enough to let you go, to let you build the life you were meant to have without me pulling you in another direction. He said if I really loved you, I'd walk away." Tears streamed down Rebecca's face. "And you believed him?" "I believed that he knew you better than I did. That he could see something I couldn't." James crossed to her, his own eyes wet. "I thought I was doing the right thing, Rebecca. I thought I was setting you free. You destroyed me," she sobbed. "I spent years wondering what I'd done wrong, what I could have done differently." "You did nothing wrong. God, Rebecca, you were perfect. You've always been perfect." He pulled her into his arms, and she let herself break against his chest, crying for the girl she'd been, for the years they'd lost, for the cruel twist of fate that had kept them apart. When the tears finally subsided, she pulled back to look at him. "My father died believing he'd done the right thing. And now you're engaged to someone else. We're still on opposite sides of an impossible situation." "I know. So what do we do?" James cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away her tears. "I can't ask you to wait for me while I figure out my life. That wouldn't be fair. And I can't ask you to break your engagement. That wouldn't be fair either. So this is it?" His voice broke. "We finally get the truth, and it still doesn't matter?" Rebecca closed her eyes, memorizing the feel of his hands on her face, the warmth of his body so close to hers. Then she stepped back. "I'm not selling the hotel," she said firmly. "I'll find another way to save it, even if it means selling my house, my car, everything I own. Stone Harbor Inn is my father's legacy, and I'm going to honor it by fighting for it the way he fought for me. Rebecca, the bank won't wait. Then let them foreclose. I'll rebuild. It might take years, but I'll find a way." James stared at her, something like awe crossing his features. "You're incredible. You know that? I'm stubborn. There's a difference." "No," he said softly. "You're exactly the woman I always knew you'd become. Strong, determined, unbreakable." Rebecca walked to the door, then paused with her hand on the handle. "For what it's worth, James, I forgive you. My father thought he was protecting me, and you thought you were doing the right thing. I can't hold on to anger about that anymore." "Rebecca, wait." She turned. "There's something you should know. I wasn't just scouting properties when I came to Charleston." He took a deep breath. "6 months ago, I hired a private investigator to check on you. I told myself it was just curiosity, but the truth is I never stopped thinking about you. When I found out about your financial troubles, I used it as an excuse to come back. The acquisition offer was real, but it wasn't the reason I'm here." "Then what is?" "You are. I came back for you, Rebecca. I just didn't expect you to still hate me. Or for me to be engaged. Or for everything to be so impossibly complicated." The confession hung between them, heavy with possibility and impossibility in equal measure. "Your wedding is in the spring," Rebecca said quietly. "You need to figure out what you really want before then. Not for me, but for yourself. And for Claire, who deserves better than a man who's in love with someone else. And if I choose you, then come find me. But James, I won't be your mistress. I won't be the other woman. If you want me, you come to me free and clear, or you don't come at all." She left before he could respond, walking out of the suite and out of the hotel with her head held high. The jealousy that had burned through her at dinner had transformed into something else, something clearer. She loved James Hartford. She probably always would. But she loved herself more, and she refused to settle for half measures or stolen moments. 3 days later, Rebecca received a certified letter. The acquisition offer had been withdrawn. In its place was a business proposal from an anonymous investor offering a partnership deal that would inject capital into Stone Harbor in while keeping Rebecca as managing owner and giving her 5 years to buy out the investment. She knew it was from James, even though his name appeared nowhere on the documents. 2 weeks after that, Charleston society pages announced that the engagement between James Hartford and Claire Montgomery had been called off by mutual agreement. Rebecca waited. Spring came to Charleston with explosions of azaleas and wisteria. The hotel's financial situation stabilized with the new investment. Her mother's health improved. Life moved forward. And then, on a warm April evening, as Rebecca stood on the back porch watching the sunset over the marsh, she heard footsteps behind her. She didn't turn around, but her heart knew before her mind did. "I'm free," James said simply. "No complications, no conditions. I chose you, Rebecca. If you'll have me." She turned slowly. He stood there in jeans and a simple shirt, the sunset painting him in gold and amber. He looked nervous, hopeful, and entirely unlike the polished businessman who'd arrived months ago. "Why should I believe this time will be different? Because this time, I'm not running from anything. I'm running toward something. Toward you, toward us, toward the life we should have had 10 years ago." He stepped closer. "I'm opening a Charleston office of Hartford Development. I'm staying here, building a life here. With or without you, I'm staying. But God, Rebecca, I hope it's with you." She studied his face, looking for any hint of doubt or hesitation. She found only certainty and the same love she'd seen in his eyes a decade ago. "No more running?" she asked. "No more running. No more choosing ambition over us? Us is the ambition." Rebecca felt the last wall around her heart crumble. She closed the distance between them, reaching up to cup his face the way he'd done to her so many times. "Then yes, James Hartford. Let's try again." When he kissed her, it felt like coming home, like every broken piece finally sliding into place. The jealousy, the anger, the years of hurt, all of it melted away under the simple truth that some loves refuse to die, no matter how much time passes or how many obstacles stand in the way. They stood on the porch as the sun set, wrapped in each other's arms, finally free to build the future they'd always been meant to share. And in the windows of Stone Harbor in behind them, lights glowed warm and welcoming, a legacy preserved and a new chapter beginning.